Well, this week we're in this whole thing called Forgotten Virtues, and kind of this week we landed on the idea of honor and respect and what that looks like and why it is forgotten. And the funny thing is if you notice Adam this week, he talks about who we should honor and who we should respect, and he brought up three really good points. One, we should honor the faceless, and then honor authority, and then how to honor God. Well, today I really want to talk about what it means to honor those in authority over us, those that have positions over us that we need to respect and have honor for. And so the funny thing is that Adam brought this whole idea up from the movie Hoosiers, and you probably laughed at it about just how you honor the coach and how the players deal with the coaches on the floor. And I actually have a story just for that. I remember, I'm guessing it was about 7-8 years ago. I was an assistant coach for my old high school, and there was this incident that one of the players during one of the games was coming out of the game. Well, it just so happened that as he's coming out of the game, there was a timeout call. And so, interesting enough, everybody kind of, you know how it goes in sports, you kind of huddle around. The coach pulls out his clipboard and he starts drawing up plays. Well, this player, because he was no longer in the game, decided that, hey, you know what? I'll just sit on the bench. And as a matter of fact, I'll actually turn around and start talking to some of the girls behind me and some of the crowd. And I'm sitting there as the assistant, and I look at this kid and I go, hey, you need to get in the huddle. You need to pay attention to what's being said. You're part of a team. Stop fooling around. Well, I thought it was the end of that. He got in the huddle. He wasn't happy about it, but he did it. The funny thing is that after the game, as I'm walking to the locker room, his, 6'4" dad walks up to me and gets in my face and says, how dare you reprimand my son? How dare you get in his face and embarrass him, in his words, to those that were in the crowd? And I simply said, sir, we're part of a team and we need to beat a team together. He needed to be in the huddle and be a part of that. And the point being is that, simple fact is that we just don't honor those that have a position over us. In that situation, the player did not honor the coach by being part of the team. And on top of that, his dad simply didn't see that he simply saw only the aspect of how his son was being treated, but not necessarily how his son was interacting with the team. And have you ever guys experienced that in our society? I mean, there's so many situations, whether it's your boss at work, whether you're having conflict with him and you don't feel like you need to honor or respect him, whether it be your parents. You might find that they don't like something that they have to say to you, so you decide just to forget about it. I'm just not going to listen to them. Whether it be just people that, such as church leaders, those kind of people within your church that you go, you know what, forget that, I'm just going to do it my way. I have found, just from my point of view, you might not agree, but I've found over the course of time, over the generations really, that we are just losing that aspect of honor, that we are no longer holding people that are older than us and at the same time have authority over us in a position of honor, and that we respect that. And I find that very interesting. Matter of fact, if you look into Romans 13:1, I'm just going to read a couple verses here from that God speaks directly to this whole idea of honor and what it means. He says, everyone must submit himself to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, he who rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted. Pretty much what God is saying is that, hey, listen, I have put people in position, and they are not there necessarily just by chance, that I have allowed them to take that position of authority, and that we must respect that. That God says that we must hold them up, and not necessarily that because they're great people, but because they've been put in a position of authority over us, that we must show respect and show honor in the way that makes sense to what God would have us do. And the interesting thing is that you're probably sitting here and you're going, you know what? I don't get it. What about those that don't deserve it? What about those that don't they're not respectable? They don't have honor. They do things shady. They don't have ethics. Their morals are all messed up. And you know what? How am I supposed to respect somebody like that? That's a great question, and something that sometimes we all struggle with. But, I found a story in the Bible that just really speaks to this, because I kind of struggle with this and wrestle with it. If you go back in the Old Testament with David, it was at a point in his life that he was running for his life. Okay, Saul was king and David was on the run. He's basically a fugitive. And actually, David had almost like a little posse of his own that he was leading as he's running around and actually trying to get away from Saul and being killed by Saul. Saul was out to kill him and to murder him. Well, this situation, matter of fact, you might call it an opportunity, came up to where David's men had actually caught Saul in a cave, and they knew where he was at, and there was an opportunity right there for David to take Saul's life. Well, actually, David snuck up behind him and cut a piece of his robe off. And then what the interesting part in the scripture says that his conscience told him, no, you don't kill him. Don't kill him. Get out of there. This is not right. And so David actually stopped and went back to his men, and his men are like, why? You had the opportunity to take his life. Why wouldn't you do that? And David, as being a good leader, said, no. God has put Saul and anointed him to be the leader, to be to the position that he has. I'm not going to take that opportunity to do something that God would not have me to do, because he put Saul in authority. Now, I don't even know if that makes sense to us. Saul's out to kill him. David's like, I got this opportunity. And all of a sudden he says no, because God has put him in a position of authority. Interesting, isn't it? That you're going to come across times that you're not going to have people that are in authority over you that's going to be respectable, that's not going to have honor. And I'm not saying that, if they're walking in a path that draws you away from God, that you should stick with where God's standards are, stay with those. But we should never show an amount of disrespect and honor for those that God has put in that position, even if you don't agree with everything that they do. That we must step into a place that God said, that we say, God, I'm going to honor you by honoring those you put in my life, that you put over me in authority. And I honestly, and here's a really big point, I think for me more than anything else, as I kind of wrestle with this idea, is that the way we honor people is a direct reflection on the way we honor God. And on the flip side, the way we honor God is going to be reflected in how we honor those that have been put in authority over us. Okay, so I think take that to heart. So here's the question, guys. Here's what I want you to talk about in your life groups. First off, because we're in the series, this whole thing called Forgotten Virtues, why? Why has honor or respect become a forgotten virtue? Why do you think that is? I want you to talk about that. And the second part of that question is, how do you deal with somebody? What are some ways to honor and respect those that have put an authority over you that aren't respectable? Does that make sense? In other words, those that you say they don't deserve honor, but I'm in a position where I have to interact with them. How do I honor them and show respect, even though I might not agree with everything they do, or even think that everything they do is respectable? Okay, so I want you guys to talk about that.